Hello, my fellow comic book collectors. It's Alan, the Comic Collector Geek, and this is going to be one of the Saturday interviews where I interview Big Nasty Comics, Rich. Um, I always see Big Nasty like in the comments of like my live streams, and I'm like, who is this guy? What do you, it's just it is a kind of a crazy name, actually. So that's the first thing I got to ask you. Where did this name come from?
Really, it's nothing too spectacular or nothing. It's just a name I came up with years ago. It's I actually was going to call my channel Fathead Comics, and because growing up, me and my buddies, we always called each other Fathead all the time. We always joked around calling each other Fathead. That and I used Fathead for different little joke things here and there and stuff, but I didn't want to get it confused with those Fathead graphics, those people that do the stuff that like they do the prints. I don't know if they have them in Canada or not, but down here they have a company that does like these sports prints that you can stick on the wall. And
oh yeah, I've seen those.
And it's
those are called Fathead.
And the company's called Fathead, but they only do it with one T. I always do it with two T's. Always had it with two T's, and I always knew I was like I knew I should have copyrighted that. And,
I think it's like a pretty common expression. You can't really copyright it, but
but so then when I was doing that, I was like, well, so Big Nasty was the other one I always did. It was always like little joke businesses and stuff like that I would do. It'd always be like Big Nasty Graphics, like when I was doing graphic design and stuff like that. So when I was wanting to do my YouTube, I've got my main YouTube, but I wanted a YouTube where it was nothing but comics. So that way it made it just easier to find people I like to watch, because I have several different things I like to watch and stuff, different formats and everything. So when I did that, I just decided, well, I'll just make up Big Nasty Comics. It sounded good. It rolled off the tongue good. So I was like, got a good response when I first came.
It sounds interesting.
So,
I'll give you that.
Yeah. So yeah, got a good response when I first came on the chats. Yeah, everybody seemed to like it. So I was like, I'll just stick with it. See how it goes. But
okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
So do you still do the graphic design?
No, not as often as I'd like. It's been so long now. I swear I would have to probably go back and take refresher courses in college or something, to get caught up on all the new technology and everything, So, I mean, probably wouldn't be that bad. I still.
Yeah, it seems like everything's AI nowadays. But
yeah, that's the sad thing about that. Yeah, but yeah, I liked it. I did it for a few years after I got out of college and stuff with it, but it was one of those things where if you didn't move to a big city, it was kind of hard to make it in the business. Not enough work.
Yeah, there's not enough.
But we're now it's
everything's digital anyways. You can just
now you can work from home and just get on there. There's a bunch of different sites that people will hire random graphic designers to do stuff. So yeah.
That's cool. So by the way, so how did you get into comics?
I got to blame my cousin Jamie on that. He's more like brothers, we grew up like brothers. He was always the one that was into the comics and always had me there with him, and got me interested in them and stuff, at a young age. And he always, where I at first, when I first started getting into them a little bit, it was hard to get my parents to buy me some, here and there they would, but not as often, but nothing like he had. So he always had the good stack of comics. So I always got my fill. Yeah, the way cooler. Yeah. And I was always able to get my fill, because we would spend the night with each other and stuff all the time growing up. Little kids do. So I would spend more time over at his place because he always had the cooler toys and the comics and everything else. But yeah,
it's always That's what you do. You find the friend with the most cool stuff. You
Yeah.
go to their place.
It just happens to be my cousin, and he and we're still tight. He lives outside of DC, so when he does come into town, I take him on comic crawls and stuff, and everything. We go hitting a bunch of shops and everything else. So it's just a good time for us
Hmm.
to be together and everything. So
That's cool. That's cool.
yeah,
So, when did you start? Like, this would be like the 80s
yeah, early '80s,
or
probably late '70s, early '80s. My I was probably about 10,
okay.
11 years old. So, but yeah,
That's a good time. I mean, to start.
yeah.
So, what did you mainly collect or read?
Well, I started with
What kind of books did you read? Or yeah,
what do you mean, like Marvel or DC or?
yeah, Marvel, DC, certain characters like
Oh yeah, like Conan was my first enter.
oh, Conan. Okay,
Yeah, my first big book was that, and then I kind of dabbled like in Justice League because that was his thing, because he always had a lot of Justice League and different DC. So really, my only Marvel ones I ever really read was um, Conan and like Power Man and Iron Fist, stuff like that. And then with his DC influence, through the '80s.
okay.
That's about what I read a lot of was DC more than anything. Till I got a little bit older, and then I started getting into some of the indie stuff. And then, of course, you get out of it, and then you dabble around in it through the years, and then sell off your stuff, and then don't have nothing for many years, and then you come back around to it. So
Everyone always goes through that sort of comic journey.
yeah, it's like a
Yeah, it's sort of like the
real,
comic journey that people go through. Like they get really into it as kids. They get involved with life, and then they sell all their stuff, and then they're like, oh man, I miss my childhood. And then they go back to it later on.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah.
So like, when did you kind of get right back into it? Like in terms of sort of reactivate your collecting.
Um, I was gonna say off and on throughout my life, I had little patches, you could say, or whatever, where I would start it up and then I'd stop, and then I would, kind of just hang around with it or whatever, and then I'd start up.
Hmm.
Usually, anytime he would come back into town for whatever reason, then that would get me fired up a little bit more about it. But here recently,
It
I'd say
was
probably in the last
yeah,
couple of
yeah, yeah.
years,
That's cool.
last couple of years, and then that's I've really been back into it hard. So
Yeah. I think a lot of people, there was kind of two things that either brought them in. One was like the MCU, like that kind of 2015, all the cool movies that came out and kind of reminded people of all the
yeah,
excitement of the comics from when they were kids, or
yeah,
COVID, which is the weirdest thing. We're all stuck at home during COVID and nothing better to do than collect comics.
yeah,
Yeah, it seemed
yeah,
like those two
yeah.
were
That
the
was that was the
big
thing.
things.
Yeah.
Hmm. So yeah, how about you show some of the books and you can tell some of the stories. I'll make you big and you can
Oh, okay. Well, like we were talking
you can
there,
show some of your books.
I like we were saying there, this is actually the first. This is the first book. Let's see if I can get it without a glare.
Conan, you got?
Yeah, this is the first Conan that I actually conned my mom into buying me, and
Well, that's very cool. That's always great
yeah,
when people have their very first comic.
it's got the tear and everything else.
It doesn't look
It's
like it's in that bad shape.
no, I mean
Like
it's
I've
well
seen
loved.
some where, because it's like,
Yeah, it's definitely
yeah,
it's definitely
but it's
well
still
loved, man.
intact.
Yeah, it's still intact. Yeah, it's the
Hmm.
there's certain books that have survived the purge over the years. That I've always kept certain
Hmm.
runs. But yeah, this one here, this was May of 1981. Written by Roy Thomas and art by Gil Kane.
Wow.
So, but yeah, stinking glare.
Oh wow, good combination.
Yeah, yeah, good old Roy Thomas, man. He that you know I should have pulled one of the other ones out that another Conan one, but like I said, this is the Gil Kane. But the one that the artist that actually got me into Conan even more was John Buscema. I I'm just a
Oh
huge
really? I was gonna think you were
fan.
gonna say Barry Windsor Smith or somebody like that.
Well, it took me
Buscema.
a few years to
Yeah,
really even
Buscema's good.
like, yeah, like Barry Windsor Smith stuff. I appreciate it a lot more now, of course, but when I was younger, it was all John Buscema. It was just this annual. It was Gil Kane that did it. So then when I went and bought another issue, a regular issue, started looking into more of the Conan, I was like, well, who's this other guy? This ain't the that's when you learn, that it's like, oh, there's different books have different artists,
Hmm.
and that's what my cousin was explaining to me when we was
Yeah,
younger and
no.
stuff, when we was little kids, and it weirded
As
me
a
out,
kid,
and I'm
I
like,
didn't
wait,
pay attention to the writers or artists at all.
well, me
Yeah,
being very
as a kid, I
visual,
didn't
it
really
was
pay attention.
always
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I paid more attention to the art. And so when the art was the artist was different, it was like, what do you mean they change from book to book, or and he's like, had to really explain that to me. But yeah, this is the first one. That's what I said. It's very well loved, but it's survived survived all the moving around and everything else. So, and then you got this little thing here. This I had one. This isn't the one I had as a little kid, but this is a book and record. It's got the little 45
Oh, I
record
love
inside of it.
those. That
Yeah, and
that's really
I'd
cool.
seen this at a show, and I picked it up because I was like, I had that when I was a kid, so really took me back. But this is John Buscema art, in this book and stuff. So, but yeah, I loved this thing when I was a kid. I
Oh, that's cool.
really played that a lot.
I used to love those records and stuff. I'd play them all the time. I had like a little Fisher Price record player that I'd play them on. I
So
I used to
that's
love
like
that.
this Conan thing right here. That's what that is. That's a big LP, like a 22 LP. It's a
The big
Conan.
ones.
Yeah, the big ones.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
the bigger the bigger full size album.
Very cool.
And I didn't. I just, like I said, I bought that last year. I was like, I wished I'd have known they had those when I was a kid. I definitely would have been looking for those. But it's pretty cool. It just tells a
Yeah, it would
story.
be awesome.
Yeah, it'd have been really cool to have that. But that's about how kind of like the smaller records was too. But the bigger ones just go more in detail. And then this is the first Power Man Iron Fist. This is the actual book that I had as a kid too. Another one I had as a kid. It was 81, written by Mary Jo Duffy and art by Carrie Gaiman. So, but it's the Bill Sienkiewicz
Okay.
cover.
Not as familiar with them, but
Yeah,
oh, that's cool. I know Bill
yeah,
Sienkiewicz. Yeah.
Bill Sienkiewicz. But it was mainly because of Power Man. I always thought this guy was like a tag along, you compared to that. Even though he was powerful or whatever. I was always like, who is this guy, man? Because at the time I didn't know that Power Man had his own book, but at this point in time, they were teamed up. So at this point in
Yeah,
time, they did
yeah,
have his own book. So, but yeah, I just always liked Power Man. Uh, I liked his his power set. I liked his tough skin or
his
whatever you want to call it.
invulnerability and stuff like
His
that.
invulnerable, yeah, stuff like that, and his
Yeah, yeah.
strength. I
Yep.
mean, just street level hero type thing. That's kind of stuff that I was kind of attracted to it at one time.
Mhm.
And then that's the same reason why then you get to this guy, Vigilante, move over to DC. This is when I started really getting into more DC stuff. This is Vigilante number one. It came
Okay.
out in 1983. It was Marv Wolfman and Keith Pollard and Dick Giordano art. So, but I just, like I said, I
Okay.
always was drawn to the street level heroes, and this guy, especially
Street level
Vigilante.
heroes. Mhm.
Yeah, street level heroes. or anti-heroes, I guess you would call this guy, because he was a
Did you?
knockoff of Punisher.
Yeah.
You know,
Did you like the what's it called? Not Suicide Squad, but what's his name? Peacemaker. Did you like that series?
yeah, I did. I like the take on Vigilante. They took some big liberties. You
He's a
know, it
bit
was
more
like,
goofy, I think. Yeah.
yeah, they made him way more goofy. It's you know, it at first I was like,
He kind of
okay, you
reminded me. Do
know,
you know Kick Ass?
yeah, that's what it kind of. Yeah, me too.
He
Yeah, it
reminded
kind
me
of
of Kick
reminded
Ass a little bit. Yeah.
me. Yeah, but but I did enjoy the series after the first couple episodes. It grew on me, and I was like, yeah, it's kind of a good take, because I knew they couldn't have him on the show like this guy was, you know. So in the books, but
So how
yeah,
was he in the original? Like, how was he in the comic? What was he like in the comic?
he was just more straightforward. You know, he wasn't.
More violent?
Um, I guess you could say that. You know, it. He. I mean, by the end of the run, he committed suicide, so his brain wasn't all there. So, I
Oh my
mean,
goodness.
yeah, I
That's
mean,
brutal.
yeah, by what was the run? It was like 35, I think, 35 issues. So, yeah, but good stuff. Kind of heavy for, I was 12, 13 years old at that time, but,
Wow.
but I was starting to be able to buy my own comics here and there. And that's about when we started really getting, our his mom, my cousin's mom, or some, anyway, we get a ride to the LCS. We had one LCS, and that was it. And kind of slim pickings it to a point. Then you got Crisis on Infinite Earths. It's this one,
Oh, that's a
was,
cool series.
yeah, it was a really good series. I really liked it, because of Marv Wolfman and George Perez, and especially because George Perez's art. It was my cousin's favorite, so it
Hmm.
was heavily influenced on me too, as far as his work and just the whole storyline. It just really drew me in, as far as the. I thought it was a great way for them to um, bring together all the different.
Reset.
Yeah, reset. Yeah, that's a better way of saying it. Yeah, good reset. Reset button on the DC multiverse universes,
Hmm.
and everything. So, but yeah, I just really liked it. It was a big read growing up. But the next one
Hmm.
was, it quickly became my favorite character, DC character, especially. It was the Question.
Oh, interesting.
And at that time, when I was younger and stuff, it was, I didn't realize that he was, from a different, from Charlton,
Yeah,
run or
Charlton. Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And I didn't realize that until I was a little bit older. But I
I don't know if I think the DC version was slightly different though. I think he was a slightly
yeah,
different character, though, wasn't he?
yeah, compared to,
Yeah.
the older guy, the Charlton run. Yeah. Yeah.
And wasn't
It,
he the inspiration for like what's his name? The guy from
Rorschach. Yeah.
Rorschach. I was trying to say Rorschach. I was like going through. I was going the guy with the mask. But that was too vague. So yeah, okay. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Rorschach. He, it, yeah. But this run, man, with, the O'Neill and Cowan, it, he just, I still have the complete run of this one. And, with Vic Sage, being the original Vic Sage and everything. But, yeah, this is probably the complete run that I has really survived all the purges because I just never could get rid of it because it was just I really want to get like an
Your favorite?
omnibus or whatever they call those things of this just so I can reread it some more because
Omnibus, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
I used to pull these out all the time and just reread the whole series all the time, and it's gotten to where I don't want to do that anymore, so brother read one of those things and take
Okay.
a less chance of damaging the book. But yeah, these
Yeah, I mean,
th-
in some ways, yeah, it's somewhat easier to read the omnibus, I guess. You can just read the whole story in one thing.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
for sure. I
But did you ever get into trade paperbacks, or
no,
I
not
don't know
too
if they would even
much.
have trade.
Yeah, but yeah, this one's. I'd like to find a better copy,
Oh,
but I'd never get rid of this one. But
hmm,
it's got a lot of spine ticks on it and everything else. But it's yeah, I mean it's the question.
doesn't
I
look
just
bad in the case, by the way.
yeah, it's one of those top loader cases. It's pretty good, but the being an all black cover, it's really hard to find one in a higher grade anyhow. And so I mean,
Hmm.
typically they come with a few color breaking spine ticks and everything, but the Vic Sage character, man, of this one is just the story arc that he goes through the whole run. Um, that's why I was mad that later on they killed him off. It was like I was so stinking mad. It's like, how can you do that? But yeah, I, um, like I said, another street level anti-hero, hero, however you want to say it. This guy definitely had no.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
he had a little bit of fighting skill, and that was it. And would get his butt kicked quite
Hmm. Yeah,
frequently,
yeah.
if he got outnumbered and everything until somewhere down the run that Batman and sent him off to get trained, retrained and stuff. And then he came back and he was a little more skilled then. Then it made it a little more interesting, but that was about halfway through the run, but over halfway through the run. But yeah.
Hmm.
Anyway, that's one I probably love the most out of a lot of my collection. And I've got, different
Hmm.
books and stuff, a variety of different stuff in the collection. So, but yeah, let's see. Then we get to my first really introduction to the indie stuff. Like I was saying, my LCS growing up, he didn't carry a whole lot of indie stuff until probably the later '80s, the late '80s, going into the early '90s, and so, but it was this one. It's Eastman and Lord, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
Oh,
book
nice.
20. Yeah, book 20. I've got 19 somewhere,
Yeah, yeah, that's a good
but
one.
yeah, 19 and 20. That's the two books that I have, and they're two of the original ones I've had since 1989. It came out in '89. So,
Hmm.
but I've never been a big fan of the turtles. I don't mind the turtles. I don't really necessarily collect them, but I've always held on to these two books because it's just
Hmm.
ones that I bought when I was younger. This was really towards the end of
Yeah, yeah.
me taking a hiatus of collecting because not shortly after, around
Uh,
1990, that's when I went in the Navy and
Oh, okay. So you
joined the
missed the
military.
comic boom. You missed the
Yeah,
whole comic boom of the 90s?
the '90s, yeah. That's probably why I have so much '90s junk now in my collection. The good stuff, the good junk. I always call the good junk.
Yeah, yeah.
The shiny covers and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
that's probably one of the reasons why I'm drawn to it. But that's the same reason why I have a big fondness for the '80s and early '90s indie stuff too. The always. I always love collecting the odd and absurd and just different books. That's my draw right now.
Yeah.
It has been for the last few years, and I know like on Nate's channel and them guys, they show those books, and I've been on there a few times showing off some of mine, some of my collection or whatever stuff that I've picked up, and it always draws me in when I catch something. It's like, man, look how absurd that is, and it's usually not too bad of a read, but yeah, this thing it's just survived the purge, just sentimental reasons, I guess, because I've had them so long. Both of those. They're not a real valuable book. I think they're like a $20 book, maybe, or something. But $20, $30, you go out there to buy one. And then
Yeah.
go back to, DC. And this is really when I first started falling in love with, Batman. And it was the
Okay.
little series, 4-part series called The Cult. I don't know if you ever read this. It was Jim Starlin, Bernie Wrightson, you know, Jim Starlin story, Bernie Wrightson art. Uh, yeah, 1988. So it's pretty cool. That's book one there. Just a good story. You didn't really, to me, it was the first real story that, well, I mean, at that time, I was trying to think when Frank Miller's come out. I didn't,
I think it was around 89, wasn't it? Or was it earlier?
it might have been before this.
Okay.
I was thinking it was right
When was
before this.
Batman Returns?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think.
I thought it was like maybe it was earlier. I'm not sure. I know it was in the late 80s. That's all
Yeah,
I know.
yeah, I know they were. That's when they was really pumping it and everything, and like I said, this was 1988. But anyway, to me, this was the first take for me to see Batman other than be the goofy 60s
Hmm.
TV show, or and that's
I
what I
haven't
really.
read The Cult. Is it sort of more of the detective, more crime-ish
Yeah,
book?
to a point. I mean, there's some action in it stuff, but it really just it shows Batman getting caught up um, in this underbelly. It's like this one's the first appearance of Deacon
Kane?
Deacon
Black
Blackfire, which
Blackfire,
is the
okay.
which is the cult leader,
Hmm.
and he drugs Batman,
Oh
and
wow.
and which causes him to have hallucinations, and of course, he takes advantage. The deacon takes advantage of that, and just and starts messing with him, and gets him to think that he's killed people and all this other stuff. It was just
Oh wow.
for the late '80s. It was one of those really off kiltered stories. Of
Hmm.
here's book two that you don't normally see Batman be in. So like I said, Jim Starlin being the writer
Yeah,
of it.
yeah, that's cool.
And it was one of these big spec books, that when they came out, everybody was like, "Here's book three."
Hmm.
Everybody was like, "Oh yeah, that's going to be worth so much money." and I at first I held on to it
Yeah.
because that's why I was thought, but over time it's just because I bought them when I was younger, when I was a kid, so teenager, so some of the
Hmm.
first books that I was buying on my own, making my own money and all that jive. And here's book four. So
Okay.
if you can see it,
Yeah, can see it.
he's actually holding a gun, which he never does.
Yeah,
Batman.
yeah.
He doesn't do guns. But yeah, it was really just a. It's a really good. I mean, I know they have the omnibus of this. I've seen it out before. It's a good read. It's might be a little dated or whatever, but I don't know. To me, like I said, Bernie Wrightson art. I mean, how can you go wrong with that? I'm very visual anyhow, so but that makes it even more interesting to me when the art's there. Oh, here's the turtles. When I must have had it out of order. That's 19.
All right, that's cool.
Yeah, book one. I've always been meaning to pick up the rest of that series. It's a book one, book two. I think there's four in that series because I've never. I'd have to
All
reread
right.
these. I'd have to reread these first two, but it'd be neat
Yeah,
just to
I
get
think I've only
the
read personally the first 10 issues of the Turtles. Like I haven't read that like the whole series yet.
yeah. And
Yeah.
honestly, these books here, my
Right.
friend Bubba Beasley was the one that got me looking at indie books. Because I was just like, he would be buying indie stuff, and I'd be like, "What are you buying that indie junk for?" and a lot of times back then, the indie stuff was more expensive. So if you're buying something for seventy
Oh,
five
really?
cents or $1, this stuff was a little bit more. Just because of the low print run or how they had to
Yeah.
publish it
Hmm.
themselves. So, but and then this one has nothing to do with my childhood, but I had to throw a little bit of love on my guy. Everybody is here lately been specking and buying up all the copies they can get and everything else of the ferret. you know, Thinking the
Oh
ferret's the
no.
guy. Even though I got you got him right there. This is my guy, the
Yeah,
Badger.
yeah.
That's always put Badger rules. You
Oh, the
know,
Badger. Yes.
the
Yeah,
Badger,
the Badger
yes.
rules. Yeah.
And this is actually from
He's basically
1983.
like the ferret too, though.
Yeah, but
Oh, okay.
this is from 1983. That's how long. That's how far
It's like
back he
earlier.
goes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
and this is a Steve Rude cover. The guy that
Okay. He was big. Yeah. He was big at the
does
time.
Nexus. Does
Yep.
Nexus? Yeah, I collect some Nexus too. Some of that stuff's pretty cool. Steve Barron, that's or Mike Barron is the one that does this. But
Hmm.
yeah, 1983, man.
Wow. That
But
was a good year.
yeah, but that cover, man, it's still for 1983. That's just explodes off the page, man. That's why I always say Badger rules. Everybody talks about the ferret, and you'll
Oh,
see
we
me in
just
the.
joke. We just talk about it because it's so goofy of a
Oh, I
character.
know that. I know that. But no, no, no. I know that. But that's why in the comments you'll see me say Badger rules. I'm always joking
Yeah,
back.
I saw that a few times. Yeah.
Yeah, Badger rules. It was like K Munin. He hates the ferret so much, and
Yeah, he really
you know,
does. He actually
and to
wrote me
just
saying he hates the ferret just recently.
yeah, yeah. Every chance he gets, man,
He just.
he he's always talking about it. It's fun. It
Hmm.
cracks me up, man. It cracks me up. But I'm not.
Hmm.
I'm not big on golden age and stuff. I'm learning. That's why I like watching your channel, Alan, and Chanko, and listening,
Okay.
to Steven and stuff. Sitting under the lemon tree and listening to you guys, and it's opened my eyes and it's got me interested in stuff. And I always like the covers and everything. So I picked up I picked this thing up
Oh
a while
wow,
back.
well, that's a cool book.
Yeah, and when I bought it, I really didn't even know until I got it home because I didn't. I mean, I paid I think $20 for it, and
That's so cheap.
yeah,
You got that. You got a for steal basically.
yeah. And when I got home, I started researching, and I went, "That can't be the same book," And I was looking at it, I was like, "No, that's the same book," because it says number 13, but it's really number two.
Hmm.
The research on it and stuff. I was gonna say I got published
So
by EC in
believe it or not,
1950.
I think Weird Science came out after, like they always kind of continued previous titles, and they would
Yeah.
just change, they would just make the numbering continue on. I think it was actually Moon Girl. that
Was it?
weird
Oh,
science. Yeah, that
okay.
was before it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Because when I was looking it up, it's it says 13, but it's actually number two.
Yeah,
Published by
yeah.
EC, July of 1950, and
Was it
interior,
say?
huh?
Does it say what the previous series was called?
No, it didn't say that on
Yeah, so
the.
I think it was Moon Girl. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty
Was it
sure.
okay? But yeah, I remember on one of your show on one of your episodes you talked about how they would continue. They
The
would just change
numbering.
the title and continue the numbering,
Yeah. That
and
way they didn't have to pay. There was some fee that you'd have to pay for every time you release a new title. So
okay,
they basically could avoid that by saying, "Oh, it's just continuing on. We're just changing the name."
okay.
Yeah, it was some weird thing.
But this has got like interior art like Wally Wood and
Yeah, no,
some of
no, it's really good.
Al Feinstein and
Al Felstein, yeah.
Feinstein, yeah, and
Who
Jack
did the
Kamen.
cover? Do you know
Huh?
who did the cover?
Al
Yeah, I thought it was Al Felstein. Yeah,
Felstein,
Real-
yeah, yeah. Is right there's his little
yeah.
thing. But yeah, I was just like, well, they mispriced that at the
Very much
shop.
so.
They
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 probably missed a zero or something. Yeah.
well, yeah, I don't know. That's why I said I noticed when I was researching it though, the reprints is doesn't say fantasy. It says there's a reprint out and it's called I forget what it says up in the corner box now. It doesn't say fantasy. It says something else,
Um.
and that's a dead giveaway that it's a reprint.
Oh, okay. It could be like science
Yeah,
or
shoot, I
something weird
forget
like
what
that.
it is now, man. But
But
that's why I
yeah,
was like, well, maybe that's what they thought it was. They looked at it real
and
quick and
they
thought it was
priced it as a reprint rather than the
yeah,
original.
and priced it as a reprint. I was just like, well, all right, because I didn't know what I was looking at when I got it. I just liked the cover, and I was like, that's really cool. I was like, well, for $20, that ain't too bad,
Yeah,
So
that's nice.
yeah, so just to show you, this is my
What?
starter.
Yeah, no, that's good. Like that's a good one to start as a golden age book because it's you got Al Felstein art, which is nice,
Yeah,
and, and it's like EC Comics, which is kind of the most well known golden age title
yeah,
or company, I should say.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I like a lot of EC books from the '80s too. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, they would reprint them, right? So.
right, yeah, yeah. Well, a lot of the oddity books I like to find and stuff was EC and stuff. So, but
Oh, okay.
that's pretty much it as far as
Okay.
what I brought the show. It was that was a hard homework assignment. I trying to
Sorry
figure
about
out what
that.
I
Like I,
no
yeah.
no.
But no, that was good stuff.
It's always um, when I do these kind of things, it's easier to sit on your side than on this side, and then say, "Hey, bring these books," bring what you want, and
And
but
then you never know what to bring.
yeah, but when I got to do it myself, it's like, man, I don't know what I want to pull out. I got to start looking around, and I was trying
Mm.
to figure it out, and I even asked Chaco, throw him under the bus about it. I was like, what should I bring?
Yeah.
What should I pull out? And
Oh,
he's like,
Chanko. Okay.
yeah, he's like, just whatever, man. He goes, whatever you think, I was like, well, because I definitely don't want it to be, boring or
Yeah, no, no, it's cool. I
not
think,
interesting.
you showed cool books. Like, makes me wanna like. I saw the cult one before, and I never picked it up. Actually, I never picked it up, but I was always curious what it was. Like, I knew it was a Batman title, but I didn't know anything about it. To tell you the truth,
Yeah,
and it was
it's
one of
a
those ones where it was kind of like a little bit like it wasn't so mainstream, even though it was a Batman
yeah for its time,
title.
man. I can
So
remember
I thought that
back
was
then that
interesting.
yeah, for its time, I can remember it was out there, for a Batman title. People were just like, "What in
Hmm.
the world?" This is odd. It's crazy. It's all this craziness is going on. He's hallucinating, so you got all these different like little hallucinating things throughout the book. That's kind of
Hmm.
hard to follow sometimes, or whatever. But it's still a
Yeah,
good
it
book,
sounds
man. It's
sounds
good.
cool.
Yeah, like I said, Bernie Wright's an art, man. You can't
Yeah.
go wrong.
So,
So
by the way, what book? Yeah, 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 he's great. Um, what would be your next big book that you'd be trying to chase?
Oh man. Um, well, I would show you my. I got Conan #1. I got that last year. My 6.5, my
Okay,
6.5 Conan #1. I've got it boxed up because I'm
okay,
getting
that's
ready
not
to.
bad.
I'm getting ready to send it off to uh,
The
Johnny's comic
CGC.
stuff. No, Johnny's comic
Oh,
stuff.
okay.
No, it's already graded. I'm gonna have Johnny
Oh,
break it
okay.
out. I'm gonna have him break it out and clean it and press it and get it all ready so that when I go to Heroes Con in June, I'm gonna get Roy Thomas to sign it, then have it regraded.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, I was too.
Nice, nice, nice. That'd be
I
really cool.
I clean it. I clean and press my own books, but that one there, I'm just too chicken. I'm too chicken to do it, you know. So
Yeah, well, you don't want to mess it up, and then
right. So
yeah, that's
so
cool. That's cool.
Johnny Johnny offered, and he seems like he's pretty good. He's been doing it for a lot longer than me. So I trust him,
Mhm.
to
Yeah, I've
get it
never
ready.
cleaned or pressed my books, so
Really?
I'm too scared.
Well, your
Yeah.
golden age ones are tricky, man. Those are the ones you really got to watch out for and be careful with
Mm,
because
yeah,
of the
yeah.
paper quality and everything is so thin on a lot of those
Hmm.
books. I'd be terrified to do a real golden
Yeah,
age book. Yeah.
yeah. So, you have your YouTube channel, but where else can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at
Okay,
Big Nasty
I'll put all
at
the
Big
links in the description, anyways. So,
yeah
yeah,
at Biggnastycomics 2 G's. That's the
yeah,
thing. That's always people those
yeah.
people off.
Miss with the one
The
G.
two
Yeah.
the 1 G had to do 2 G's, and other than that, I me and Chanco's our live show on Saturday night. It's starting to shape up to be something. I looking forward to that every
Do you
week.
do that
So
on your channel or do you do that on his channel?
on my channel for
Okay,
now
cool.
until he's trying to figure out some programming. He doesn't like StreamYard, and he's got a different program that
Really?
he's yeah
StreamYard's the easiest though.
I yeah I think it's the way he set it up. Maybe it's causing him some problems, and
Hmm.
I told him that maybe if he would go back and like just hit reset and reset it up all like new again or something. But yeah, to me, I'm learning it somewhat. I'd still like to
Yeah.
get. I'm going to get more proficient at it for sure. But yeah, I like it. It works out good for me when we do our streams and stuff. So, but yeah,
Yeah, usually it's okay for me. Like, hopefully during this broadcast, like we've been having a little bit of communication issues because it's raining really hard here. And like my internet's been like iffy the whole time. So I really do appreciate your patience
oh, that's all right.
with me.
It was
Um,
it was storming here on my way home, and I was like,
mhm.
God, I hope my electric didn't get knocked out, And then I wasn't
Yeah, yeah.
I wasn't 100 feet from my house, and there was a tree down across the road, so I had to go all the way
Oh my
around
goodness.
to get to my house. And I thought, man, I hope the electric's not knocked out, and then the cable and all that,
Yeah, yeah.
internet. But yeah, it was storming here pretty good too.
Well, okay. So yeah, so again, thanks for coming on. And
Thank
everyone that's watching, I'll put the link to Big Nasty's Instagram and his YouTube. Go over and check him out, and check out his Saturday show, the show. I don't
the
know. It's
live
like,
live
what is it
show
called again?
show, the
The
live
live
show
live show
show.
show.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
live
I knew
show
it was like
show.
some silly name. Yeah, the live show. It's like Ren and Stimpy or something.
That's what a lot of people say. It reminds them of like Ren and Stimpy, and what was the other show? There was something else. It was just something I was trying to come up with something,
Beavis
and
and Butthead or something. I don't know. Yeah.
yeah, I don't. And I was just trying to come up with a name, and I just was like, the live show. I was like, live show, and I went, I like that. And then
Yeah,
Chanko was
it's
like,
cute.
yeah.
It's yeah, why
He's like,
not?
I like it too. So we just kept because I when me and him partnered up, start doing the show
Yeah,
together. I told him I said, we can change it, and he was like, no, that's all good. You know, because he said I like it.
yeah,
He goes, I like
yeah. It
it.
kind
So
of works.
yeah, it's something
Yeah,
different.
it's fun. Yeah. So it's good that you found a partner to do these things. Like I teamed up with the guy in the UK, and you know, it's like it's cool to have that partner where you can kind of, you know, have somebody bounce, you know,
Yeah,
things off of.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And yeah, so thanks again.
Thank you.
And
Thank you
bye,
for having me,
everyone.
Alan. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.